In three, two, one, here we go. Welcome back, family. And we are back and starting off the week hot with some financial tips from my guy, Josh G. Now, this is somebody who I bring on anytime I have conversations with my clients, people like you guys who go ahead and reach out to me and say, hey, Dekimbe, what should I consider with this? Or what should I do with that, right? When it comes to starting our home buying process or the home selling process, there's a lot of financial questions that come with this too, right? When it comes to the mortgage and things you should do around that. So I always want to make sure that I'm consulting with somebody who has another level of expertise, a much deeper understanding of this actual topic instead of just giving you some general information, right? So I'm going to bring you these questions. I'm going to bring your questions to Josh throughout the month and see what kind of answers he has for us so we can take that guidance and move forward, right? So, Josh, thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. Glad to be back.
Yep, yep. And Josh, like I was saying before, for people who haven't followed along with the past episodes that we've had, over the past couple of years, give me a quick little introduction, right? Like, why should people listen to you?
Oh, absolutely. Well, my name is Josh Giddings. You can see me on Instagram at who is Josh G. My Instagram shows you a lot of who I am, what I do, and what I'm all about. I am a local mortgage banker and also an entrepreneur, very well versed in all areas of finance. So I would say it's more than just a mortgage. It's never been sure in this market. So who you work with matters. You want to work with somebody in the know, such as like myself or Dekimbe here. So that's it. That's what we
I
do.
love it.
Provide
I love it.
information and provide value.
There we go, people, right? So, and like you're saying, especially at this time, that's why I think it's important as well for people to get that introduction and get a quick, brief background about what it is that you do and how you help people, right? Because like we see there are, and we talked about this actually just the other day, right? About like as people are continuing to go out there and step into this new world of the real estate transaction, and you're seeing more people who are going to be putting out content and marketing themselves as people who can help you. I think it helps to build that level of trust, right? So I want people to once again become more familiar with you over the time and know that okay, this is a guy who I can rely on. When the Dekimbe brings him on, he is somebody who has valuable information, tangible information, and stuff that actually makes sense and is facts, right, over fiction. So, Josh, I definitely want to thank you again for breaking that down for the people. So let's dive into it. This past about 2 weeks ago now, right, I was talking to one of my clients, and they were asking me about they saw this little thing on social media, right? They saw a video, and this person was talking about like buying down their interest rate, and they were saying, okay, you can go ahead and do right. They were giving me the general gist of it. So they were saying, well, I heard I can pay a little bit more, not as far as a down payment, but I heard I can pay directly to lower my interest rate. So I asked them, I was like, okay, you talking about discount points? And they were like, yeah, that's the thing. So, like I said, I wanted to bring you on so you can really break that down, and people are going to hear what I'm talking about and really have probably no idea what that means. Like, what do you mean I can buy down my interest rate? What does that look like? They know interest rates are high. So, starting from really the surface level, right? Like, what are discount points?
Really, the discount point is interest that's paid upfront instead of over the life of the loan in exchange for a lower interest rate. Okay. So in those situations, it makes sense where maybe somebody's got a tight debt to income ratio and you need to bring down that housing payment to help them qualify. Or maybe somebody says, hey, Josh, I don't want to be over a $2,400 a month payment. An interest rate buy down, which we're talking about now, is a permanent buy down, not temporary. That's something we could talk about in another episode. But when you're paying discount points, that's a permanent buy down, meaning it's not a teaser rate. You're buying down in effect your interest rate for the life of the mortgage, that full
Mm,
30 years or whatever term that you're doing.
okay. And so, like you said, over the life of the loan. So, if this is for a person who might be looking and saying, okay, well, I know I can get a fixed loan and I know there might be a variable, would that apply to both situations, or how does that then change? Say, if I get like a loan that might change in the next 5, 6 years, right?
Yep. Well, that would be a temporary buy down. We've heard probably about like 2-1 buy downs, 3-1 buy downs, where it's a teaser rate. So let's say the going rate right now, 6.5, right? Bring it down. If you do a 2-1 buy down, you actually close at a 4.5% rate. Then the next year it goes to 5.5, and then it goes to your fully index rate at 6.5. So it's a graduation. So that might be good for like our younger buyers that will say, okay, I just got out of college. I'm starting my job. I'm getting this amount of money next year. I get another raise. Then I might make partner, and then boom, I'm good,
Mm,
right? So it's all about, that's where I said earlier, it's more than just a mortgage. If I just sit here and go, hey, okay, you want to buy a home, 30-year fix, 5% down payment, I'm literally doing you a disservice. And that's the problem. There's a lot of order takers in this business. Order taker is fine at Taco Bell. It's not fine when you're getting a mortgage, right?
Mm-hmm.
We want to take more of a consultative approach, what your long and short term goals are, right? But going back to the permanent buy down, that interest rate is going to be fixed for the life of the loan. It's not a teaser rate like a temporary buy down or an adjustable rate mortgage. Because what you're doing is you're paying a little bit of money up front. So that way you get a lower interest rate for the life of the loan. It actually works to your favor the
Okay.
longer you're in the loan, right?
Mm.
So with that, you want to take into consideration a break even. How long do you plan on being in the home for, right? If I'm moving to Philadelphia and I'm like, hey man, I'm only going to be here for a few years and I'm out, I might be at my next job, I might get reassigned somewhere. Paying a point or point or two might not make sense, but
Mm-hmm.
in this market right now, it makes a lot of sense because you can significantly lower your interest rate in today's operating environment.
Interesting. Okay. And that was once again one of the biggest reasons why we were having the discussion is because at the time of this recording, right, interest rates are, and let me know what it is that you're seeing from the actual, loans that you're going through and processing, but the average rate, so once again, correct me if I'm wrong, is right above 7% right now.
Right
Right.
now,
For
yeah,
like
we got a little bit of relief in the market today with the Fed saying that they're not going to raise rates, which is good. They're not lowering them yet, but they still want to be pretty aggressive towards inflation. The number isn't there where we want it. It's heading in the right direction. We haven't arrived yet, so we got a little bit of relief today. But no, I mean, right now, interest rates are solidly in the sevens across the country.
hmm. And so once again, let's say somebody wants to bring that down to about 5.5%, right? Or let's not make that big of a jump, right? Because
Yeah,
that's
probably
that's
wouldn't
going to
make
cost them more,
sense, right?
right? Let's say even 6.5.
Yeah, so that can be attainable with points, right?
Hmm.
And you want to compare that cost to how
That's
much you're
that's what I wanted to
saving a
dive in.
month,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
So let's say, if it's $5,000 cost, you're saving 200 a month. You divide that savings into the cost, you get your break even. The next question would be, how long do you plan on being in the home,
Hmm.
right? Because people will say, well, I plan in the future to refinance. Okay.
Hmm. Yep.
Nobody has a crystal ball, though. We're all hoping interest rates go down, but nobody can make a prediction of that. If anybody guarantees that interest rates are going down, they're lying to you, right? So the expectation would be is yes, we saw some relief in the market today. Hopefully, we get out of the woods with inflation and interest rates will start to trickle down and there'll be a refinance opportunity. But what if there's not? What if you're buying the home today at that rate and you're budgeting that, hey, in 6 months or a year, I can refinance? What happens if you can't?
Hmm.
Now you're in a position where you may have difficulty making that monthly payment,
Yeah.
right? So I'm always a big proponent of closing my buyers with a payment that fits in their budget. And if it involves points, so be it. It's not a bad thing at
Mm.
all because you're getting more bang for your buck paying points like that. So the general rule of thumb before we hit this inflationary market was for every point you pay, and 1 point is 1% of your loan.
Hmm.
Okay? So if you're buying a home for $400,000, but you're borrowing 300, that 1 point is
Yeah.
$3,000. It is not four. Okay, it's based off of your loan amount because you're paying interest on your loan, not on your sales price.
Mm.
Okay, so the general rule of thumb pre-inflation is every 1 point that you pay would drop your interest rate about a quarter of a percent, right? So if you're at 7.25 and you pay 1 point, that would get you to a flat 7%. Now in today's market, you're almost incentivized to pay points the way the rate sheet's stacked up, right? So a lot of times at 1 point you can hit a sweet spot where you could get 3/8 to half a point 5/8 reduction in rate just for 1 point. So you get a bigger bang for your buck. So a lot of my deals that I do, I'll have at least 1 point on it that's buying down my client's interest rate below market levels. So you're able to get a softer payment, also have security in your monthly payment in case you don't refinance. And
Mm.
you're only paying a point, your break even is going to happen much quicker because you're getting a bigger bang for your buck instead of saving a quarter. You're usually saving about half.
Mhm.
You can recoup that much quicker with your break even, or even if you don't, you're close enough to refinancing. It's a fair enough trade off for that security.
And final question about around that before we jump into refinancing. Now, as far as people being able to afford, right, that cost for the discount points and buying down their rate, are you seeing people always come out of their own pocket and buying it, let's say on the buyer side, or are you seeing that also through like seller concessions? What are some ways that they're coming up with that money for to buy down that rate?
Absolutely. So rate buy down, yes, it is a cost. So it's either picked up by the buyer or the seller. So if you have extra cash, a lot of times you get more bang for your buck. Instead of putting maybe 5 grand down more for a down payment, that's going to move your payment a little bit. You put 5 grand down to your points, and it moves your payment a lot, right? So again, more bang for your buck. Buying that down for sure.
Hmm.
And then I'm sorry, what was the second part of the question? I want to make sure I touch both points.
Actually, you just covered it there. Just seeing like where they're actually able to, you pull the money from to cover
And the
that cost.
sellers as well. And
Yeah.
you can
Hmm.
also negotiate a seller assist,
Hmm.
and the seller could pay for it.
Hmm.
So that's great too. So that way it can help you get into a payment that's affordable because instead of doing a price reduction in negotiating, we'll negotiate for the seller to buy down the interest rate. So instead of taking 10 grand off the sticker price, right, and going from 350 to 340, right? Let's say you're about 65 bucks a month. What you
Hmm.
do? But if we do a 10 grand buy now, holy smokes, now I'm saving you several $100 a month. That's
Hmm.
no extra money for you. The seller, if the price is the same, 340, 340, doesn't matter how that 10 grand comes back to you. So now we're being purposeful instead of just being lazy and negotiating it to be off the sales price. We're being intentional with our negotiation and getting a bigger bang for the buck.
Gotcha. Okay. And just had another question there about that. Something popped into my head. Let me see if it comes back to me. One second. One second. Nope, I think I lost it, but I'll see if it comes back to me in a few seconds because
No
I did want
problem.
to dive into. I did want to dive into. It just came back to me. So before we get into refinancing, is there a limit on how much they can get from a seller to assist them with buying down those points?
From a seller, no.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
And to those of you out there that says there is a cap, fire your loan officer.
Yep. So I wanted to make sure we cover that too, right? Because somebody might be able to say, like, okay, well, if I can negotiate, a high enough amount, is there a max on how much I can put towards doing something like that?
No,
So,
but there's also the law of diminishing returns, right?
mhm,
So sometimes too much is too much, right? So we want to have a balance for that. So if we have extra cash, a lot of times I'll split it up into doing a rate buy down and then also helping alleviate closing costs, right? As
gotcha.
well.
Hmm.
So we really do a balance of it based upon the client's needs, but we'll never go into overkill. You know,
Perfect. Okay.
it doesn't make sense.
Okay. Great. Now we're going to shift things up a little bit here, people. All right. Because the next conversation I was having with somebody who's currently in their home, right? Home has been, they've had the home now in the family for decades, right? And they went ahead and refinanced on the loan a couple of years ago, right? And with that with that refinance, they went ahead and pulled some money out of the home, and now they're going ahead, and dealing with the repayment side of those things. And that's where the conversation kind of led us was whether or not that was a good decision at the time, right? Whether or not they should have did the like a cash out refinance, right? Where they pulled some of the money they had in the equity and then just kind of restructure the loan as it is, or if they should have taken out a home equity line of credit, right? Or a HELOC. Should they have just put in that line there and just started pulling from that time over time? Now, that obviously things were different over the past couple of years. Rates were in a very different place, right? That we've never seen them. So I wanted to bring that question to you and see like what are some of the considerations that you take your clients through when you're going through, just that conversation as, hey, like, listen, I know you've been in this home for a couple of years and you want to see what you can do now with the equity you've built up in this home to move on to another either project or maybe your second home or investment. What does that conversation look like for you?
Yeah, real easy. So um, needs, wants, desires. I want to know your short term plan and your long term plan, right? So then that way I can start matching financing up to you. But general rule is I'll just run down some basic scenarios that
Hmm.
will probably cover about 90% of our audience here watching this right now. So a lot of people who may be looking to get some cash right now, you got those golden handcuffs, right? You're probably sitting at a 2 or 3% interest rate. So you don't want to do a cash out interest rate, end up with a rate in the sixes or sevens, depending on where you qualify, right? In order to get some cash out of your home, right?
Hmm.
That would be kind of stinky if you had to do that, right? But it also depends what your plan for that money is, right? We'll
Hmm.
come back to that in a moment, right? So a lot of people will do what's called a home equity line of credit or a second mortgage. And what they do is they sit in second lien position. So you have your first mortgage here for whatever your 300,000, your 3% rate, and then maybe you'll do an equity line at 7, 8, 9% for 100K, right? And you're preserving the main bulk of your financing at that low interest rate. You're tapping into your equity to use that money for exactly what you said, different opportunities, pay down
Hmm.
debt, whatever. That's an ideal situation, but not everybody's going to be able to qualify for a home equity line of credit,
Hmm.
right? So then your other option is going to be a cash out refinance. And if you're doing debt consolidation, it's probably going to make sense to lose that 2 or 3% rate because of the interest rates on your credit cards. There's a formula that we can do and do what's called your blended rate of financing, right? Take everything that you're paying, your mortgage, your credit cards at all the different rates, and we mix it all up and say, okay, all the debt that you have, you're not at a 3% rate, you're at like 6.75,
Hmm.
right? That's costing it over the different balances compared to the rates, right?
Hmm.
People don't think about that, because again, it's never the price, it's the terms, it's how it's
Hmm.
wrapped up.
Yep.
So if we do a blended rate, then you might say, hey, it makes sense for me to get out of this high interest rate credit card debt where I'm only making minimum payments and it's not going anywhere. You really have to put a ton of money to your credit cards every month if you want to pay them off if you're carrying a balance. So
Mm.
that could be a very good strategy. But you as a consumer out there, you don't know what you don't know, right? And it's going to take somebody like me to walk you through that process and show you what your cost of financing truly is. But what happens is we as consumers, we get tunnel vision. I got a 3% rate. I'm not changing it. Okay, but you're throwing away so much money over here. You're actually losing money
Hmm.
holding on to that 3% rate. And that's sometimes a tough pill for people to swallow. But once you show them the numbers, kind of takes those blinders off, and people are like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
now this makes sense. So that's why I always say it's never the price, it's the terms. What are the terms of your current financing? You're only looking at your mortgage. So if you're looking to do debt consolidation, you want to look at a blended rate. What
Mm.
happens if you're pulling the money out and you're buying an investment property or investment? Well, what's your return on investment? Is it going to cover your higher interest rate? Right? Right now, I mean, you could be an idiot and make double-digit returns in the stock market, right?
Yep.
So if I can sit on a
Yep.
ton of cash in my home, so what if I'm taking out 6, 7% if I'm making 15 to 20% in the
Hmm.
market right now, which is very plausible. And that's, folks, that's not an aggressive stuff, you know, that's investing solidly,
Hmm.
right? So a lot of my accounts, I'm up 15%, 25%. It's real.
Yep.
It is real. So, money sitting in your home earns you 0%. So if you're borrowing at 7 and you're gaining 15, what's the problem?
Hmm. I love,
So
love,
you
love
got
that
to
you broke
look
that
at the
down.
whole picture.
Yeah. I love that breakdown and the way you really, how important you made it for people to think about breaking down the numbers within the whole picture, right? Because it took me back to when I was sitting there with clients at the bank and with our investment banker, and we would be looking at their retirement plan, right? And saying, like you're saying, thinking long term, what is it that you're looking to do, not just like right now, but over the next decade, the next 15 years, the next 20 years? What does that look like for you? Because when you start looking at all those numbers and bringing everything together, you start seeing, well, at least back then, right, when we were talking about retirement, how much money are you going to need per year, right? How much money are you really spending per year? Do you have a clear picture of how these things really add up and what, right at that time, we were talking about the rate of return, like you were talking about your investments, right? How much money are you going to need to be pulling from your investments year over year to say, to do those things? And sometimes they would look at the home equity, right, and say like, okay, how much do you have here, right, save just in case you need to pull this out. And it was really shocking for some people when they looked at that overall financial picture and saw how all these little pieces were connected, just like you're saying, because when you add it up, the number that you thought you were paying may not match up with the exact number at the end of the day. And now you're sitting there scratching your head saying, wait, how do I get out of this trap that I've put myself in? Because I was expecting to maybe be out of here in 5 years. And now I'm looking at it and saying, like, I don't know if I'm going to be out of here in 10 or 15 years. So I really hope people get, take that away from what you just said is like taking the time to sit down with people because it is a lot of information and it is not something that most people do on their on their day to day, right? So it's important to reach out to people who have the knowledge and the expertise to sit down and be like, this is what we need to look at, this is what we need to look at here, and then seeing what that breakdown really looks like for you and how it applies to you, right? Not just what you heard somebody else say. So, like I always say, people, I definitely recommend reaching out. If you guys have any questions, you can always go ahead and click the link, that we have right underneath the video. You can schedule a call with myself, with Josh, and we'll be able to answer any questions that you guys have. Um, Josh, any other things that you wanted to go over there that I might have missed out on those points?
No, I mean, Dekimbe, you hit it. And look, people, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and reach out, right? We all have our areas of expertise. You don't see me running my own electricity to my house. I'm not doing open heart surgery on myself, right? You have your go to people for your major stuff, and you need to have a go to realtor, just like you need to have a go to loan officer, attorney, accountant, doctor. You need to be able to put your trust in the people that you do trust that are
Hmm.
going to look out for your overall well-being.
Yep. I love it. I love it. And that's what we're here for, people. So, like I said at the beginning of the episode, if you guys have any questions, about what it is that we're doing, feel free to shoot them over to us, right? We'll bring it to another episode so we can share with everybody else and they can also learn from what's going on because this is what we're here for, right? We're here to help. So, Josh, I appreciate you taking the time out to come on and help the people. So, until next time, I'll see you guys later.
You got it, team. Thanks for having me, brother.